Hello, friends. Welcome to MaxxTech, where we uncover the grit behind history's greatest feats. Today, we step into the forests of early America, where men faced towering 300-year-old trees armed with nothing but axes, saws, and sheer determination. No chainsaws, no engines. How did they make the impossible look routine? Watch as human skill alone takes on nature's giants. Step into the ancient forests of the Pacific Northwest, home to giants like Douglas fir, western red cedar, and Sitka spruce. Some of these trees soared more than 300 feet high, their trunks wider than 12 feet at the base. The first branches began so far above the forest floor that sunlight barely touched the moss-covered ground. Ferns crowded the roots, and the air was cool and heavy, muffled by a wall of living wood. These weren't just trees, they were pillars of time. A single Douglas fir might have begun its life before the first European ships reached the coast. Red cedars, with fire scars and storm wounds hidden beneath thick bark, sometimes stood for 1,000 years. Amidst these towering giants, a logger looked tiny, and he was just a flicker of movement at the foot of a living skyscraper. In these woods, the scale of the challenge wasn't measured in feet, it was measured in awe. Bringing one down wasn't just about strength, it was about confronting centuries of growth and the sheer weight of nature itself. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, railroads chewed through forests like fire through grass. Every mile of new track demanded thousands of wooden ties, each hewn from towering old-growth trees. But it wasn't just rails. Steel trestles, bridges, snow sheds, mines in the west, and booming coastal cities all fed a ravenous appetite for timber. Disasters only made it worse. When the Great Seattle Fire of 1889 tore through more than 100 acres downtown, sawmills across Puget Sound ran around the clock. Mills like Yesler's and Stetson and Post turned ancient Douglas firs and red cedars into beams, joists, and shingles as fast as crews could stack them. In just 2 years, hundreds of millions of board feet of lumber flowed into the city, rebuilding street after street. From San Francisco to Chicago, Pacific Northwest forests were the backbone of America's growing cities. But none of it would have been possible without the men who faced the giants of the forest. Before a single board could be milled, before a spike could be driven, someone had to confront a living skyscraper. And with trees this massive, only hand tools and sheer human muscle stood between the forest and the world beyond. A logger's day began with the misery whip, a massive crosscut saw stretching 6, sometimes 12 feet, its teeth sharp and jagged, ready to bite through centuries of wood. 2 men, one at each end, gripped the removable handles and fell into a careful rhythm. Steady pull, easy return. The saw cut only on the pull, and every stroke demanded control. Push too hard, and the blade buckles. Hands blistered, shoulders ached, and resin gummed the teeth while sawdust clogged the kerf. But this wasn't just brute force. It was precision, patience, and skill. Experienced sawyers earned more not for their strength, but for their ability to bring down a giant safely. One mistake could ruin a tree, destroy valuable timber, or worse. In fact, records from Yesler's mill foreman show that before every cut, the crew would meticulously check the lean of the tree, the wind, and the trunk for rot. They scanned the canopy for widowmakers, dead limbs ready to drop, and plotted their escape path. Only then could the real work begin, facing a living skyscraper armed with nothing but steel, sweat, and human determination. To bring down a giant, The first step was always the springboard notch, a pocket carved into the tree's flared, twisted base, too wide to saw efficiently from the ground. Axe in hand, a logger like Miller would cut a notch 6 or 8 feet up, then jam in a plank fitted with a metal shoe. It wobbled underfoot, but held just enough, letting the fallers stand above the flare, eye to eye with the straight, clean trunk. Both men would mount their boards side by side, set the saw, and prepare for the first cut. Every step was deliberate. Where to stand, where to cut, how to retreat if the tree leaned the wrong way. The work was slow, methodical, and unforgiving. Only when every detail was perfect did the misery whip bite into the wood, and the real test began. In the woods, a term barber chair was every faller's nightmare. It means a tree could split violently, sending its base flying like a cannon. Deep in a southern forest, a veteran faller faced a towering old-growth pine, its trunk thick and resin-soaked. Carefully, he set his springboards, balanced 6 feet above the forest floor, and worked the saw through hours of tough, fiber-laden wood. Every motion was precise, every step calculated. Then, in a split second, the forest fought back. A sudden crack rang out, and the tree's hinge failed. The trunk split upward violently, sending the butt of the tree rocketing backward. The feller was pinned against the roots, saw still embedded in the wood, helpless for a terrifying moment. When the crew finally freed him, it was too late. He had paid the ultimate price. The camp ledger marked it simply: barber chair, fatal. No insurance, no compensation, just another name lost to the forest. This kind of accident is not confined to one region or one era. Investigations from occupational safety bodies in North America regularly list the barber chair as a hazard in tree felling. In one more recent 2012 incident, a middle-aged man cutting down a large box elder tree suffered a fatal barber chair collapse when the vertically splitting section broke away and struck him, pinning him as the remainder of the trunk remained standing. Even in skilled hands, the giants of the woods gave no guarantees. For every tree that fell clean, others resisted. Each cut demanded hours of sweat, planning, and nerve, with danger lurking in every swing. In these forests, a single mistake could mean disaster, and sometimes the forest won. Then came the revolution that changed the face of logging forever. In 1929, the first gasoline-powered chainsaws appeared in the woods. Awkward two-man machines weighing nearly 200 pounds, clumsy by today's standards, yet groundbreaking in their impact. Before their arrival, bringing down a giant fir or cedar could take half a shift of relentless hacking and sweating, the misery whip inching its way through resin and fiber. With the gasoline chainsaw, that same tree could be felled in mere minutes. The rhythm of steel and muscle, honed over generations of hand fallers, gave way to the roar of engines. The change wasn't merely about speed. It redefined what strength meant in the woods. Muscle was no longer measured in the swing of an axe or the pull of a saw, but in the horsepower that could be summoned at the pull of a cord. In the decades that followed, mechanization leapt forward with astonishing pace. Today's timber harvesters, sleek, powerful machines operated by a single person, can cut, limb, and buck a massive tree in less than 5 minutes. Tasks that once required teams of seasoned men working in dangerous harmony. With computerized controls and hydraulic precision, These machines have transformed logging into a choreographed dance of metal and motion. Forests that once demanded blood, sweat, and near superhuman endurance now yield to the quiet hum of hydraulics and the tap of a joystick. But for all the progress and efficiency, there remains a lasting echo of the forests that came before, and of the men who wrestled with wood and gravity long before engines changed the game. Logging camps of the early industrial era were rough-hewn outposts thrown together deep in the woods, where men from Finland, Norway, Japan, and the American Midwest crowded into long, narrow bunkhouses. These camps were melting pots of language and tradition, but also crucibles of hardship. Even in summer, the air inside was thick with the scent of damp wool, wood smoke, and the weary breath of men freshly back from a day in the timber. Nights were echoed by coughs and snores, a chorus of bodies pressed together in thin bunks, repairing muscle and spirit, only to rise again before dawn and trudge out into the trees. Pay was better than many jobs offered in the cities, and that lure of cash drew men into the forest year after year. But everyone knew the price could be high. Few spoke of it openly, but almost every logger could name a man who had been crushed or crippled by a falling log, caught in the snap of tension wood, or stranded by a miscalculated cut. Accidents were part of the rhythm of the woods, whispered about over coffee and cards in the evenings, etched into the cautious respect every man held for the trees and for one another. The scars those men left behind are quiet now, but they remain etched into the landscape. Walk through any old logging ground in the Pacific Northwest, and you'll find the stumps, thick, square-notched remnants of once towering giants. These notches mark the places where springboards once perched, where men stood balanced above flare and twist to set the first cuts. Each notch is a memory carved in wood, a testament to skill and risk, patience and precision. They are silent markers of a time when the forest gave up its treasures only after a brutal negotiation between man and tree. Today, less than 10% of the Pacific Northwest's old-growth forests remain intact. These ancient ecosystems, once blanketing the hills and valleys with immense firs, cedars, and spruces, have dwindled under decades of logging. The loss is measured not just in acres, but in centuries of growth, time that cannot be reclaimed. As modern debates rage over what should be preserved, protected, or restored, the scars left by handfallers serve as a stark reminder. Every beam, every board came at a cost. Sweat, risk, and irreplaceable time went into every cut, every log hauled out of the woods. What will we choose to leave standing? The question hangs over every conversation about conservation and industry. In a world where machines can fell forests with unmatched efficiency, the human story behind the cutting, the courage, the danger, the respect for the living giants, reminds us that forests are more than resources to be harvested. They are living records of time, habitat for life, and silent witnesses to the history of human ambition and labor. So when you stand before one of those scarred stumps, trace the weathered notch with your eye. Imagine the hands that made it, the stance of a logger balanced 6 feet off the ground, heart pounding, saw biting into ancient wood. In that moment, you are touching not just a piece of wood, but a story of transformation, of a world that once relied on steel, muscle, and human grit, and of a future that may yet learn from what we have chosen to leave behind.